Good morning. My name is Marcella Phillips Grizzle. I'm the acting research fellow at the African Caribbean Institute of Jamaica, Jamaica Memory Bank, sorry. And I want to thank you for joining ACIG's YouTube live presentation. This morning, we're going to be looking at the topic African Influences in Jamaican Holistic Living, Insights from Jamaica Memory Bank Interviews. The presentation is essentially a broad and general overview of some intrinsic intangible cultural heritage beliefs in Jamaica. However, I want to emphasize that the information I'm about to present is heavily slanted towards the African traditional beliefs and mores that are derived from the motherland, and not so much on overt practices that may be observed here in Jamaica. That aspect is hoped to be presented at a later time. So then, to get things started, this morning's presentation is actually shaped by two interviews that I conducted in 2010 for the Jamaica Memory Bank. The interviewees' names are Mr. Obietep Bakushek, on whose interview this presentation is heavily slanted and reliant, and Dr. Kofi Barima. Both interviewees are adherents of traditional African lifestyle practices, albeit pursued via different pathways. Bakushek, for instance, has adopted his Afrocentric and holistic lifestyle through independent study, with an emphasis on Kemetic traditions and also a reliance on esotericism, while Barima has followed the path of apprenticeship, receiving guidance from Akan priests and thereby focusing on West African traditions. I will begin the presentation by sharing some basic information on traditional African beliefs. And for the purposes of the presentation, I will be a bit licentious in generalizing the African continent as a whole, although we know that all of Africa is not uniform and that regions and countries possess their own unique cultural heritage. Nonetheless, there are certain fundamental beliefs that the traditional Africanists hold to that dictate how life is viewed and lived. In fact, the overarching African worldview holds that all power, whether it is of the ancestors, people, animals, or plants, derives from one source, God Himself, and is always exercised through people. Furthermore, Africans believe that the ancestors and spirits, and ultimately the all-embracing world of God, are always immanent and making things happen in this life. From a social perspective, Africans believe that people are not naturally self-sufficient, but rather are reliant on relationships. What is important is not the individual, but the collective, the family, the clan, the whole people. According to anthropologist Theo Sondermeier, this worldview contradicts the Europeans, who believe that life includes its own end, and the knowledge that it has to be shaped individually. The author furthers the point, quote, "For the Westerner, life means individuality. The development of life is understood as enhancing individuality. Community, being with others, is secondary. For Africans, it is the other way around. Individuals only exist because of the community. The community is the given condition of life. It extends in time beyond the bounds of the present era, backward to the ancestors and forward to future generations." End quote. For Africans, therefore, the concept of unity and continuity bring relief. In fact, the African worldview dictates that life is what matters most and that inherently all have an obligation to pass on the life they have received. For years, the African worldview has become an attractive frame of reference for peoples of predominantly African descent who were born in the Western Hemisphere and for the most part have been shaped by Western ideology. However, for many, there is a growing disenchantment with the Western culture, which is felt to be a reduction to consumerism and a desperate pursuit of success and showmanship. Increasingly, people are pursuing alternative lifestyle practices, slow living, conscientious, healthy living, which includes naturopathic medicine, in the face of mounting and widespread cases of mental illnesses, anxiety and depression, as well as physical health problems, terminal illnesses, and just overall ill health that are progressively associated with the pervasive culture of excess, workplace stresses, and over the course of this past year, health fears and financial strains directly associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. Jamaica is no exception, and as health awareness increases, so does the pursuit of holistic treatment as a cure and holistic lifestyle as a prevention, which has become more appealing to persons who wish to add not just more years to life, but more life to their years. Holistic living, as an alternative to the established allopathic medicinal system of the West, is often used as an umbrella term to incorporate any or all of the following traditional practices: herbalism, diet, fasting, meditation and prayer, massage, acupressure, etc. However, according to Ra'un Amen, author of the book Metanita Volume 2, the prevailing understanding of holistic lifestyle is merely a non-unified collection of diverse practices and is at best an eclectic approach. Holistic practice and medicine is rather the use of a formalized set of symbols that guide thinking to the identification of all the energy factors contributing to the patient's health and illness. It is a system that typically cross-references types of herbs to types of illnesses to types of people in order to build a diagnostic and treatment system that is able to look at the affected parts of the patient in relationship not only to the individual as a whole, but to the individual's relationship and response to the environment. This is holistic medicine. As was mentioned earlier, this morning's presentation will look at the beliefs and practices of the two previously named interviewees, with a view to portraying their introduction to and pursuance of Afro-traditional holistic living and ancestral practices, which rely on the interaction with God and the spirit world for guidance in daily living, wisdom in understanding natural and supernatural matters, and exerting a degree of control over the course of one's life. So the decision for both adherents, Dr. Kofi Barima and Mr. Obiatet Bakushek, to pursue a lifestyle change was influenced not only by a general disenchantment with the impact of the mundane and the nuances of modern living on their lives and the environment, but also an unshakable feeling that there was a higher calling on their lives to essentially live differently and spiritually. Bakushek believes that on a larger worldwide scale, there is a notion that we as humans need to be more productive, largely for the accrual of greater profit margins, and that this notion has led to an increased demand for extended hours of work in a day. The rise of the shift system, he believes, is a subconscious affront on the Creator that he has not given us enough hours of sunlight for productivity. Bakushek recalls that within his community in Upper Clarendon, prior to the distribution of electricity by JPS, people would stir at sunrise and prepare their meals, go off to work, and because they knew that they had only the sun hours to work with, people would execute their various tasks accordingly and have them completed before nightfall. He believes that that pattern of living, according to the course of nature, rendered people healthier, and that the tendency to tamper with the natural cycle of the workday principle has taken a tremendous toll on people. He holds that the price society pays is very high because when people work when they should be resting, over time their ability to make good decisions becomes compromised, which inevitably leads to critical blunders even on a national level, which invariably affects the entire country. He maintains that while there is nothing wrong with electricity in and of itself, it is being improperly used to eke out more productive hours from the day. This trend, he believes, ultimately leads to social and psychological dysfunction. For Bakushek, the growing discontentment with materialism and the superficial spurred the desire for a lifestyle change. Afrocentric holism and mysticism therefore presented an inherently logical and spiritual alternative to the westernized pattern of living. For him, the traditional African way of life was a natural outgrowth of who he is at core. He believes it is intuitive, but that it also allows him to project outwardly what it entails to be true to oneself. Thus, for him, understanding the concept of his own self and communal identity was of paramount importance. Bakushek underscored the point by stating that recognizing that names are significant and realizing that the names African descended peoples of the New World have are European is an important step. For him, his European birth name held no real meaning. It imparted no significance to his growing up and the purpose for his life. On the other hand, he believes that the customs of Africans to provide their children with names that tie in with their destiny is profound, and that it gives their lives a sense of meaning and purpose. On that premise, he was led to change his birth name and to further alter his lifestyle to mirror as best as possible traditional African cultural practices. For Bakushek, therefore, the pursuit of Afrocentric holism and mysticism was, as well, a natural attraction. As he put it, when I look in the mirror, I'm seeing an African. He was therefore interested in increasing his awareness and knowledge of traditional African culture. One basic means of attaining that sense of enlightenment was via observation. For him, growing up, he looked at people's lives and their experiences and asked the questions, why am I here? What is the purpose for all this? He then recognized that there ought to be a sense of order, and in terms of how people behave towards each other and how they behave towards a natural environment, he also recognized that there must be something greater in terms of our attitude and our action. In his words, quote, you start to look into your own life and start to be truthful and adopt a sense of honesty and trustworthiness, caring about others, and therefore you recognize that there's more to life than how we actually treat each other as an individual. And there comes that perspective. You begin to go into self and you begin to discover that it makes sense to be nice to people. It makes sense to be kind to people. And it makes sense to be respectful, and therefore it comes out. And then you begin to discover your ancestors' teachings and you recognize it's harmonious and it makes for a better society and a better community. And in terms of how we go about solving conflicts and togetherness. End quote. Bakushek also attributes his initial enlightenment to the role of the ancestors. He states that there are two perspectives to our ancestors, or immediate ones that are within the Caribbean, such as your parents, your grandparents, and those who did not come across the seas from Africa, the ones that stayed in the motherland. He also believes that the African teachings that had been carried over by our ancestors, that they have an impact on life in terms of how you go about your own economics, how you go about community building, and therefore it also lends to a greater view or perspective of why you are on earth, that it's not just for yourself, but that you have a responsibility to family, to the natural environment, and also to leave a legacy that those who come after you can speak good, or one can become an honored ancestor eventually. Now for Dr. Kofi Barima, who also underwent a name change via deed poll, the pursuit of an Afrocentric lifestyle and holism was a matter of a spiritual calling. According to Kofi, there's a general consensus amongst Akan cultural practitioners in Ghana that the Abosums, or the ancestors, are calling their children who left Africa a long time ago. He asserts that his call is not necessarily a personal call, but maintains that throughout West Africa, cultural practitioners believe that the Abosums will call, or they are Orishas if you are Yoruba. Within the Akan society are Akomfos, which can loosely be translated as a priest, even though the Akomfo is far more than a priest. The Akomfo is the custodian and the keeper of the cultural knowledge and the spiritual knowledge of various Akan people. According to Kofi, quote, within each Akan village you may have several Akomfos, who are responsible for overseeing the rituals of a particular deity. And these Akomfos, based upon their more intimate connections with the Abosuns, will relay this message that the Abosuns are calling many of their children who left a long time ago. And because the Akan believe that the blood is what connects all together, so even though you may be in Jamaica for the last 400 years, or you may have been in America for the last 300 years, hypothetically speaking, that essence of that Akan ancestral energy is still flowing through your makeup. So even though you may have a Congolese connection or a Yoruba connection, if the Akan ancestor within you takes precedence, then that is the particular force that may call you to reconnect and establish a communication or connection with them. So it's not a personal call per se. It's a general call that many within the diaspora are experiencing. End quote. The full-time practitioner of the Afrocentric lifestyle will strive to attain mastery of the various aspects of holism. Utilizing ancestral gifts is important in the practitioner's desire to achieve ingrained and effortless holism on a day-to-day basis. According to Bakushek, the most essential ancestral gift is really the gift of life. Notwithstanding, he believes that whatever innate skill or talent a person possesses, whether it be that a person is skilled with herbs, the use of colors, or even construction, that it may count for as an ancestral gift, which is ultimately a gift from God. However, he believes that before one can master an ancestral gift, it is one's duty and responsibility to first discover what one's talents are, then cultivate them so as to be of benefit, first of all to oneself, then one's immediate family, the community, then the world at large. Considered ancestral gifts, healing is one of the most widely esteemed, along with divination and the interpretation of dreams. These three fundamental ancestral gifts are oftentimes used in a complementary manner in order to fully comprehend both the natural or physical, as well as spiritual forces that are at work in our lives and our environs. Practitioners therefore tend to use the natural things around them, such as herbs, the food they consume, as well as different forms of healing oils and incense to bring about a palpable balance in their lives. An interesting observation from Bakushek allows the song and singing as an ancestral gift. This gift, he asserts, has been demonstrated in Jamaica and within the Caribbean, alongside the use of the sound of the drum and the stringed instrument to bring about what he calls positive vibes, which he believes induces merriment within the person's body, which in turn releases positive chemicals that lift the spirit of depression. These positive vibes also help with developing life skills, how people manage everyday activities, and how they cope with challenges. For Bakushek, our people or our ancestors have actually been able to go through very challenging times by being able to sing and to create merriment. This, he claims, is a powerful form of healing. Notwithstanding the various forms that healing may take, a person may be conflicted in their daily life, and before that person is able to receive healing from an appropriately discerned method, an understanding of perplexing and distressing signs is critical, and significantly, the interpretation of particular symbols is crucial to identifying a resolution of the problem. For this reason, dreams play a quintessential role in the demystifying of subconscious conflict or trauma. According to Bakushek, every human being is endowed with the ability to receive, through dreams, information, both past and present, and even future. Dreams are therefore considered to be a conduit for one's life force, to bring to the fore what is taking place in one's life, in one's family, and in one's community. Dreams therefore play a very critical role in how one's past and present unfolds, and as traditional Africanists believe, dreams can prevent many future difficulties as they act as a means of forewarning. Dreams are therefore a gift that fills the gap where the external senses fail. More often than not, dreams, more so troubling dreams, are marked by symbols, some of which are unknown or foreign to the dreamer. Bakushek believes that having consistent symbols that are ingrained in our psyche would spur our life force to work with those symbols, which in turn would enable us to easily interpret dreams or better interpret them. However, because we do not have a regular set of symbols to work with, then messages from dreams may be received readily at times and at other times are imperceptible. Dream interpretation therefore becomes more difficult because the life force does not have a consistent set of symbols to draw on. African traditional societies, on the other hand, tend to possess systematic symbols. Spiritual symbols that once observed in a dream will be more readily understood, thereby providing understanding of the tone and the message of the dream. The culture of the Kemetic and Nubian people, for example, involves the use of established symbols. The scepter, which is a specifically designed staff, is a most prominent symbol that has been immersed in this culture for millennia. It is popularly associated with the wise rule of pharaohs. Notwithstanding, the symbol of the scepter also represents health and happiness. Although a dream including the symbol of the scepter may be loosely interpreted as being linked to health and happiness, a guided interpretation of the dream may point to particular health concerns that need to be addressed, whether it be an illness or an advisor to be careful not to allow improper eating habits to compromise the quality of health and life. African symbol formation is arguably most manifest in the context of medicine. In this respect, the origin and symptoms of the illness hold great significance in the dispensing of treatment, which is not wholly consisted of actual medicines, but also comprises a spiritual component. Medicine, therefore, is a term that covers both natural healing agencies, such as leaves, roots, and the like, and also the invocation of spiritual influences that are thought to be associated with them. And this is done via prayer, or for people more inclined, through incantations. And let me reiterate in conclusion that whatever the gift that the pursuant of traditional African holistic lifestyle practice possesses or hopes to possess, the fundamental tenet of this practice is mindfulness in all one's intentions and actions, both spiritual and physical, and whether they're toward the self, toward family members, members of one's immediate community, or the wider society. Both Mr. Obeatek Bakushek and Dr. Kofi Barima proved to be rather interesting and insightful interviews. Their decision to pursue Afrocentric holistic living piqued an interest in alternative lifestyle practices, with a view to interviewing additional such persons in the hopes of showcasing the push-pull factors as well as the tangible elements of holistic living in Jamaica. Now, we at ACIJ hope to produce content on this topic for our YouTube channel. We will keep you informed. Stay tuned. And please feel free to view our other offerings on the channel. Thank you again for watching. Bye for now.